We are live. What's up, my friends? Abby here, and welcome to the special pre-launch party, exclusive party, and author reading of my new book, The Otherworld. I'm so glad you're here today. So happy that you are able to join me live. It's so exciting. First things first, tell me if you can see me and hear me okay. I have to make sure that my camera's working, my microphone's working, so type in the chat, let me know. Hopefully everything is working well today. And I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for being here today. And above all, I need to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for pre-ordering my new book, The Otherworld. It means so much to me that you were one of the first people to order this book and to show me the love and support on my author journey. It just means so much to me, and I will never shut up about how grateful I am for you being here and reading my book and pre-ordering it. Just so amazing. Okay, everyone can see me and hear me. Wonderful, fantastic. Welcome, everyone. Tell me where you're tuning in from as well. Where are you in the world? And I don't know if it's morning or afternoon for you. It is afternoon for me, and it is a lovely rainy afternoon here in Vermont. It feels like perfect weather to do a author reading and just to like snuggle up on the couch with a cup of tea and a lovely candle flickering in the background and to just enjoy some story. So, wonderful day for that. Perfect weather for it. Awesome. We have someone from Canada, Massachusetts, Idaho, Arizona, Puerto Rico, Pacific Northwest. Yay, that's so cool. Chicago, South Korea. Wow, it's 3 a.m. in South Korea. You are amazing, Olivia. Thank you for being here, for staying up so late for this. Wow. Poland, Utah, Idaho, Philippines, New Jersey. Awesome. Well, I'm so glad you all are here. This is another reason why, like, just seeing this makes me so happy, because this is something that we couldn't do anywhere else, right? Like, this can only happen in the form of a live stream, because that's the way that we can all come together from all over the world and enjoy this celebration together. So happy you're here, and I'm going to get started in just a few minutes while everybody hops on the live stream. I'm just going to chat for a minute, and then we're going to get into our reading time. You might be able to see behind me on the floor. It's kind of out of sight, but there's a big stack of hardcovers, and those are that's just actually part one of four. There's four more stacks like that I still need to unbox, of the hardcovers that I'm going to be signing tomorrow on a different live stream, on the launch party live stream on my channel. And that one is going to be available for anybody to watch. This is private, exclusive party for just us, for just you amazing people who pre-ordered. But yes, so these hardcovers, I'm going to sign 50 copies tomorrow on a live stream on my channel. So you don't want to miss that either. That's happening at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. Launch day. It's so crazy. I can't believe the 19th is already here. Time just totally flew by this year as I published this book. It's just amazing. Awesome. Some of you have already gotten your copy in the mail, which is so surprising to me. I don't know why. I don't know how Amazon sent them so early, for anybody who pre-ordered from Amazon. But hey, it's a blessing. So Evelyn asks, my friend pre-ordered this book for both of us but wasn't able to attend. Will replay be available later? Yes, a replay will be available. All you have to do is just copy and paste the link of this live stream. So wherever you click the link, that link will always be the replay after this is finished. So you can share it with your friend, and that's so awesome. Thank you both for the support. Thank you all for the congratulations, and I cannot wait for you guys to receive your copies of this book. So first, we're going to do the reading, and then I'm going to answer some questions that come up in the chat. And I'll also be scrolling back if you guys ask questions throughout the reading. You can just tag my name at reply Abbie Emmons so that I can scroll back and find your questions, or you can save your questions until after the reading. So 2 ways to do that. Hopefully you have a cup of tea or something yummy and cozy to drink. I think I'm going to read from the paperback because it just is nicer to hold. Although I do love the hardcovers. And for anybody who's wondering, who thought like the signed hardcovers are the only ones that have the special hidden covers, they are not. Every hardcover that you order anywhere online will have this special hidden cover in the underneath the jacket. So if you haven't gotten your hardcover yet and you want to, you can still do that. Absolutely. And I'm also going to do some signed copies in the future again. So if you missed the chance to get a signed copy, don't worry. There will be other opportunities to get signed copies in the future. So stay tuned for that. There's also going to be some limited edition copies, which I'm really excited about. And I've been working on the design for that over the past couple months. I've been working with an artist on the design, and it's so beautiful. I cannot wait for you guys to see it. It's amazing. Okay, so let's get into the reading. I'm going to read you guys the first 2 chapters of this book. And by that, I mean the prologue and chapter 1. So they're both Orca's point of view. And some of my favorite parts of the book, definitely did some rewriting from the first draft. Looked a bit different, but the prologue was very, very similar to how I had originally written it. And I really do love the prologue of this book and the opening of it. So hopefully you have something cozy to drink and you're settled in and ready to read with me. Also, feel free to read along if you have your own copy on hand. But let's get into it. So this is kind of nostalgic for me, honestly, because before I get into the reading, I just want to say one last thing. Kind of nostalgic because, as you guys know, I did my last 2 audiobooks myself, 100 Days of Sunlight and The Best Christmas Ever. I did both those books, narration-wise. And this is going to be the first book that I don't narrate the audiobook, which is kind of bittersweet for me because I do love reading my own books. I love narrating, but I also am glad that I don't have to do all that work again because it is a lot of work to make your own audiobook. And the cast that Tantor chose for the audiobook is just so amazing. They're so talented, and I cannot wait to hear the book read by these amazing talents. So it's kind of nostalgic because this is going to be like the only time I get to really read it for anybody. So you're here for something really special, and I'm so glad you're here. Okay. I'm going to stop yapping now and read, and then we're going to get into the Q&A segment afterwards. The Otherworld. Prologue. My father always told me that there are 2 worlds, our world and the other world. Our world is simple. It is the island. It is the lighthouse. It is the endless waves of ocean stretching in every direction. It is the soft, thick blanket of clouds rolling across the sky, carrying rain and sometimes snow. The other world is out there, beyond the edge of the ocean. I wouldn't have known it existed at all had I not asked my father when I was 8 years old. What is out there, Papa? With a smile, he answered, more ocean, thousands of miles of it, waves and waves into infinity. Infinity, I whispered, reaching my hand out as far as I could. We were standing at the railing around the top of the lighthouse. I spread my fingers and watched infinity fill the spaces between them. And what's that, Papa? That land way out there? Papa's face went pale and quiet, like the breathless calm before a storm. His sharp eyes looked past the fog to the distant shapes of islands like ours. That is a whole other world, he said, placing a weathered hand on my shoulder. It's where most people live. Why don't we live there? Because we have our own world, little Orca. His gaze floated across the silver-crested waves as they danced ever closer to our shore. The other world is full of danger and darkness. Like thunderstorms? Papa nodded. Like thunderstorms. But not the thunderstorms you've seen. These thunderstorms are inside people. They are people. They're dangerous, mostly because you can't see the storms coming. People change from light to dark in a moment, without warning. I didn't understand what he meant, but I thought about his words. I thought about the other world. The other world. Papa knew it well. He'd lived there for a long time before he came to the lighthouse, but I couldn't remember ever seeing the other world, and I longed to know more about it. Papa's natural history books talked of rainforests, sweet with nectar and fizzing with tropical birdsong. Deserts as wide and lonely as the open seas. Mountains so tall they were never without snow. Earth wasn't the problem, Papa said. It was the people who caused the problems. The thunderstorm people. But even thunderstorms have another side to them. A terrifying sort of beauty when rods of white lightning split the sky into pieces and flash on the swells of the black ocean below. I used to sit by the window and watch such storms with Papa at my side. When the thunder roared and shook the sea around us, I would snuggle close to Papa, and he would tuck me into the side of his overcoat. He smelled of rain and salt and hard work. Our dog, Lucius, didn't care for stormy nights. He would lie across Papa's feet and whine until the thunder ceased. Our island is small enough to circle in a day's light on foot. A coastline of hard gray beaches and jagged black rocks slick with sea mist and vibrant green moss. If you walk straight across the island instead of around it, you come to a thick gathering of trees, stout junipers, sticky hemlocks, and paper birches, thousands of branches reaching up to the sky and blanketing the mossy forest floor in golden leaves come autumn. But of all the sights and wonders our world has to offer, none is more familiar to me than the lighthouse. Her whitewashed tower stands proudly on the island's northern tip, crowned by a glass-walled lantern room, sea mist worshipping at her feet as she sends light across the water to infinity. At times, I have glimpsed lights from the other world, too. Little pinpricks of light, as if some stars had fallen out of the night sky and landed in the water, twinkling for a moment on the horizon before the waves swallowed them up. What is it like out there? Will I ever know? When Papa spoke of the thunderstorm people in the other world, he emphasized how much we don't belong there, how much I don't belong there. You're a very special, kind soul, Orca, he'd say, looking deep into my eyes from across the dinner table. People aren't kind in the other world. None of them? Not many of them, Papa said. You're like a delicate and unique branch of coral. You belong far away from the violent crashes of the waves on the rocks. You see, coral can't survive in the tide. That's why they flourish in the reef, on the ocean floor, out of harm's way. I understood what he was saying. I wasn't strong enough for the other world. According to Papa, it would smash me and destroy me. Year after year, I helped Papa keep the light. Occasionally, boats and planes would cross paths with us, always miles out of reach, traveling in too many directions to determine where they came from or where they were going. I amused myself by making up stories about the people in those planes and boats, where they might be traveling to, and what kind of lives they led. Every 3 months, a Coast Guard boat would come to our island and moor off the east side. 2 men would carry out a routine inspection to ensure the lighthouse was up to standard. Our only other visitor was the supply man, who came twice a year to deliver us essentials we couldn't grow or build ourselves. Knives, new flint, ointment, fresh rope, yellow wax candles, sacks of flour and rice, and fat bricks of soap. I loved to examine the new supplies piled up in our living room, studying them like treasures from the bottom of the sea, my only taste of the other world. When the supply man left, I would watch his boat through Papa's spyglass, squinting hopelessly through the eyepiece until the small craft vanished into the distance. Season after season, year after year, the other world remained a mystery. The only evidence that it existed at all lay in the ropes and the wax and the knives and the pinpricks of light and the look in Papa's eyes when he remembered it. Chapter 1. Strange Treasures. Orca. Every year on my birthday, Papa carves a new driftwood orca whale and leaves it on my nightstand. It's the first thing I see when I open my eyes on the 14th day of June. I know exactly which piece of driftwood Papa used for this one. He's made it a thing of beauty, sculpting away the gnarls and knobs of the branch to release new life from its soul. An orca whale breaching high from a wave of driftwood, its pectoral fins like wings in flight. I turn the carving over in my hands, marveling at Papa's talent before I place it atop my dresser with the others. There are big ones, little ones, males with tall dorsal fins, and females swimming beside their babies. Today I have a pod of 18 orcas porpoising across my dresser. 18. I've waited an eternity for this day, to finally step over the threshold of childhood and embark on a new chapter of my life. In the other world, 18 means something. It means you are no longer a little girl in need of protection. It means you are an adult, capable of making your own decisions. It means anything is possible. I twirl over to the window and throw it open. Briny, sweet sea mist billows inside, fluttering the papers pinned to my walls. Ocean charts and illustrations from marine biology books. Seashell garlands sway and clink jovially in the breath of a new day. I lean my elbows on the windowsill and peer across the water to the mist-shrouded islands in the distance. So many adventures waiting to be had. So many mysteries waiting to be discovered. So much more just beyond my reach. Today is the beginning of it all. I wrap myself in my crocheted shawl and head into the living room. Lucius lifts his scruffy head upon my entrance, romping over for a good morning hug. I kneel on the floor and loop my arms around his neck, planting a kiss on top of his head. He is a sandy, salty mess of a dog, another outcast from the other world. Papa found him at a harbor 5 years ago, whimpering in a box marked "Free to a Good Home." He was the only puppy in the box, and there was no telling if he'd had any brothers and sisters taken before him. The fact remained, Lucius was all alone. Perhaps they didn't like his mismatched eyes. One was brown and one was blue, but I always thought it made him more beautiful. Papa didn't have the heart to leave him behind, so he tucked him into his raincoat and brought him to the lighthouse. He's just the right sort of dog to have on the island, a mix between some kind of collie and some kind of shepherd, according to Papa's analysis. I think he may be part bloodhound because he can smell a good meal cooking from half a mile away. "Today is the day, Lucius," I whisper conspiratorially into one of his floppy brown ears. "I'm going to ask Papa to take me to the other world. He can have no possible reason to object now that I'm 18. "Orca?" Papa's warm mahogany voice calls from the kitchen. "Is that you?" I pat Lucius's head as I climb to my feet. "Come on, boy, let's go." Papa's eyes light up when I step into the kitchen. "Happy birthday, my sweet girl." I dash across the room and pull him into a hug. "The carving is beautiful. Thank you, Papa." He murmurs a humble laugh against the crown of my head. "I'm glad you like it, Orca." "I love it." Reaching over the sink, I push open the window and invite the morning breeze inside. Beyond the window, a knoll of soft young grass slopes down to the land's end, where massive craggy rocks meet the sea. My gaze follows a pathway of golden sunlight, glittering on the high tide like crushed diamonds. Waves crash and seagulls cry. Our world carries on, ever the same. But today is different. The aroma of chamomile and lavender fills the kitchen as Papa strains freshly steeped tea into 2 ceramic mugs for us. A sickle of morning light crests the side of his face, contrasting with the scruffy, salt and pepper beard that lines his jaw. Steam curls around his weathered hands as he pours the tea, his gray eyes solemn and thoughtful. Everything feels so much more alive now that I'm 18, I begin, sitting in my usual spot at the table and settling my chin on my fist. I almost feel like a new person, older, wiser. Hmm, Papa murmurs, taking a seat at the other end of the table. I'm glad to hear it. But his voice could no more be described as glad than a rainy day could be considered cheerful. Papa, is everything all right? His somber eyes meet mine. I hope so, Orca. What do you mean? Well, it's just, I received a phone call yesterday. A phone call? The satellite phone is our only connection to the other world, and I've never used it myself. Papa has always told me that the phone is not a plaything and should be reserved for emergencies if we ever need to reach the Coast Guard. Or, in this case, when the Coast Guard needs to reach us. They've summoned me to the mainland, Papa says quickly, as if the words sting and he needs to get them out in a hurry. The mainland, I echo, a thrill of hope awakening in my chest. The other world. Why? Papa draws a deep breath and stares into his coffee mug. Sorry, his mug of tea. It seems there are some changes to be made around here. What sort of changes? Modernization, Papa says with a sigh. All the lighthouses across the country have been fully automated for years now. Ours is the only one that hasn't been converted to the new system. What's the new system? One without lightkeepers. I frown. But how is that possible? Technology has changed a great deal since the last light was installed in the 60s. The new lanterns they make now can be controlled remotely by the Coast Guard. There's no longer any need for a middleman. Does that mean we'll lose our place here? Papa shakes his head. I've been told we can stay on. The grounds and tower will still need upkeep, which we will continue to manage. A weak grin tugs at the corner of his mouth. Don't worry, sweet girl. It won't make much of a difference to us. If anything, it will give me more free time to spend with you. I shake my head. I'm not worried, Papa. On the contrary, it sounds exciting. Modernization here at the lighthouse. And what a lucky coincidence that you just happened to be summoned to the mainland on the very day I turn 18. Papa regards me with a curious frown. A lucky coincidence? Yes, because it's a special birthday, isn't it? I mean, in the other world, 18 is the beginning of adulthood. It means I'm older and wiser, and I clasp my hands together in my lap, my chin tipped up with confidence. Well, the truth is, I was planning to ask you to take me to the other world for my birthday, but I was worried it might be a bother. And now, I laugh, a giddy rush of excitement flurrying through me. Well, now I don't have to worry about it at all because you need to go to the other world anyway, and Orca. Papa's voice is quiet, but firm enough to stop me mid-sentence. The sorrow in his eyes is outmatched only by his unwavering resolve. You won't be coming with me to the mainland. Not this time. My heart sinks. Why not? Because I need you to stay here, to keep the light and look after things. And take care of Lucius, of course. At the sound of his name, Lucius trots over and pushes his head into Papa's lap. Lucius could come too, I offer, though I only half expect him to take this suggestion seriously. I lean over the edge of the table to say, Would you like to see the other world, Lucius? I know I would. No, Orca. Papa gives me a stern look from across the table. I need you to stay here. I trust you to take care of things. It's no small task. Do you think you can handle it? Of course I can handle it, Papa. But I wouldn't be any bother if I did come with you. And I'm sure the lighthouse would be fine for a day without us. I'll be gone for more than a day, Papa returns decidedly, those first 3 words burning me like a bee sting. I'll be gone. How long do you suppose it will take? Papa sighs, rubbing his beard. I hope no more than 3 days. 3 days? These government matters can take time. I don't like it any more than you do, Orca, but I promise I will return to you as soon as possible. My gaze drifts down to the cracks in the old kitchen table. I know every line and scratch, how it got there. This one from the bread knife I dropped a few weeks ago. This one from the year I learned to write the alphabet and accidentally scrawled past the edge of the page. This one from Lucius's claws, attempting to steal a cooling pie before I wrestled him to the floor. 18 years I have sat at this kitchen table and looked across at Papa's sweet, familiar face. 6,570 days. Perhaps I was foolish to hope, to wait, to expect that one of those days would be the day Papa told me I was old enough, strong enough, wise enough to go to the other world with him. I swallowed a pang of disappointment, knotted in my throat, and managed to ask, "When are you leaving?" "A boat will come for me first thing in the morning," Papa says. "I hate to leave you like this, my sweet girl, but you'll be strong for me, won't you?" I nod, proving it now, if only to myself, as I blink back the stinging tears. "Of course, Papa." "It's not fair," I grumble, trudging down the flagstone path to the greenhouse, my harvesting basket slung over my shoulders and Lucius trotting at my side. "My whole life I've been asking Papa to take me. Now the perfect opportunity arrives, and what do you know? I can't go with him. Even you have seen more of the other world than I have, Lucius." He sneezes with an air of smugness. "Well, you don't have to rub my nose in it." I open the door to the greenhouse and step inside, Lucius close at my heels. A riot of color surrounds me, greens and reds and yellows and purples. Morning glories ribbon up the support poles, pressing their faces toward the ceiling in search of the sun. Beds of romaine lettuce grow in different stages of readiness. Feathery carrot tops drape from deeper beds of rich soil, and heavy vines of tomatoes cling to stakes, covered with small fruit. A long trough of strawberry plants follows the wall at my eye level, red jewels dangling from tender green leaves. Sugar snap peas tangle playfully around everything in their reach, and the pepper plants sit stoically, watching their wild fun. Butterflies dance to and fro, fluttering from blossom to blossom and darting glimpses of yellow and orange and blue and white. My favorite part of the greenhouse is the very center, where a circular opening in the roof allows rainwater to filter down and collect in a basin. Colorful orchids hang from the ceiling, their roots twisted acrobatically around the opening. Papa designed it that way to give the orchids a moist habitat while collecting the rain in a convenient place for the rest of the plants. I whisper hello to the orchids, and they reach out as if to shake hands, their painted faces smiling with shy elegance. I lift a clay pot from the side of the basin and fill it with rainwater, tucking it against my side as I circle back through the greenhouse to water the plants. Lucius sniffs the ground for fallen berries, occasionally sneezing on dirt. Tomorrow, Papa leaves for the other world, and I stay behind. All these years, leaning as far as I can over the lantern room railing with Papa's spyglass. All these years, squinting through the fog into infinity, hoping to glimpse just a fragment of the other world. All these years, poring over Papa's maps and learning the names of our neighboring islands, San Juan, Lopez, Whidbey. Yet Papa won't take me with him. "What have I ever done, Lucius?" I say, returning to the basin to scoop up more water. Lucius glances up from the green bean beds across the row. His snout is dusty brown from sniffing the earth, and his ears are perked, waiting for a command or food. I can tell he hopes for the latter. What have I done to make Papa think I'm so weak, so incapable? I sigh, watering the tomatoes and the peppers. What have I done to make him mistrust me? Lucius whimpers and lies down. Very helpful. I shrug my harvesting basket off my shoulders and open the woven lid. I start by twisting the biggest heads of romaine from their beds and shaking off any excess dirt. Next, I move on to the tomatoes, plucking off only the roundest, reddest fruits, gently laying them in my basket. Maybe it's not just me, I murmur, running my fingertips over the long row of strawberries. Maybe it's because of Mama. Maybe he blames the other world for what happened. I've lost track of how many times I have pulled back the curtains of my past memories, searching for a glimpse of Mama, a trace of a voice or a smell or a touch, but each time I find nothing. I was only 2 years old when she died, too young to remember anything about her. Trying to summon a memory feels like pushing my arms far down into sand, digging for something that isn't there. It wouldn't be half so disheartening if Papa would tell me about her, if he would share some of his memories with me. But he never speaks of Mama, and I learned many years ago to keep the subject off my lips. Every once in a while, I see the light in his eyes change from present to past, and I wonder if he's thinking of her. I've never seen a picture of her, so I don't even know if we look anything alike, but it's impossible to mistake the sadness in Papa's eyes when he looks at me sometimes, and I know that I remind him of Mama in those moments. Lucius whines at my feet, waiting for a strawberry. I carefully pluck the sweet rubies off the plant, collecting them in a separate, smaller woven basket so they won't be crushed among the other vegetables. Or, I add, maybe I just haven't done anything to prove I'm capable. Lucius watches me roll a berry between my fingers. What do you think? He paws my leg and shimmies an inch closer. I pop the berry in my mouth. He looks so devastated, I can't help picking another plump strawberry and tossing it to him. He catches it midair and immediately wants another. No, we can't eat them all here. I turn back to the trough and continue harvesting. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Maybe Papa would let me go to the other world if he saw that I'm much stronger than he realizes. Maybe I can find a way to prove it to him. Any ideas? Lucius tilts his head as if thoughtfully considering the question. I know what you're thinking, I say, lowering my voice to a doleful, dog-like grumble. Orca, you've complained to me about the same thing over and over again. You just can't stop talking about the other world. I'm tired of hearing you go on and on about it. I sigh, popping another strawberry into my mouth. I know, Lucius, and I'm sorry to dump all this on you, but you're my only friend. I lower to a crouch, cupping his dusty, speckled face in my hands. He stares at me with those beautiful, mismatched eyes, as if he can read my thoughts. I wish I could talk to Papa about this, but he doesn't understand, and I don't want to upset him. He just doesn't know what it's like. He's had his adventures. He's lived in the other world. For so many years, I've looked out over the sea at night and watched those lights from the other world and wondered what it's like out there. I've wondered what my life might have been. My throat tightens as the ache of tears choke my voice. It's a kind of grief, Lucius. I can't describe it, but it's like mourning something you never had, something you could have had, if only things were different. Unbidden tears begin to fall, spilling from my eyes. Lucius dips his head down and licks them off my cheeks, startling a laugh out of me. I slide my arms around his shaggy neck and clutch a fistful of his fur. Oh, Lucius, you always know how to make me feel better. By mid-afternoon, the sun tucks herself behind a blanket of clouds and leaves the rest of the day smudged in shades of gray. While Papa goes fishing at the cove, I sneak off to walk the beach and collect shells, my linen pants rolled up to my knees and Lucius tromping at my side. He loves to splash through the surf and bark at seagulls, making them scatter. The tide is going out, leaving behind all sorts of new treasures. Thanks to Papa's books and charts, I can identify most of the shells I find. Silky white scallops, gnarled gray oysters, ribbed brown astarte, one huge empty macoma that opens like a pair of butterfly wings. Then, lodged between the tide pools and the rocks, I spot something unusual. A thin bronze chain coiled around a fat strip of kelp. I reach down, sifting through a tangle of seaweed, and pull it out. It's a compass, small and finely crafted, strung on a chain and dripping with salt water. Where did it come from? I look to the horizon, squinting to see if there's anything else unusual in the receding tide. But there are only gray waves upon more gray waves. My gaze slides back to the beach, where Lucius hops over driftwood, barking happily at the gulls. That's when I spot something ahead, washed up on the sand. From here, it is nothing more than a black lump that the tide is beginning to release from her frothy fingertips. A dead seabird, no doubt. Lucius, come! I holler, gripping a handful of shells and running down the beach toward him. Lucius has a habit of putting nasty things in his mouth. He also has a habit of defiantly running away from me when he thinks I have a mind to deprive him of some fun. He looks back at me with a crazed spark of adventure in his eyes and bolts down the beach for the dead bird. Lucius, come! I sprint after him as fast as I can, splashing through the shallow water and dodging branches of driftwood. As I draw closer, I see it's not a dead seabird. Lucius trots to a halt and sticks his nose in the black lump, sniffing and sneezing ferociously. What is it? I say, slowing to a stop. It looks like a sack of some kind, battered and black, strangled by a long strip of kelp. Zippers and buckles are stitched into the bag, and two long straps hang off one side, reminding me of my harvesting basket. Perhaps it's designed to be worn on the back? I pull the kelp off the sack and turn it over in my hands, undoing one of the buckles and pulling the zipper open. To my surprise, the interior is completely dry. Feeling around, I find a flashlight, a clear bag with fishing line and hooks, a tiny box of matches, and a fold-out knife. Then, without warning, the sack begins to vibrate. Holy mackerel! I gasp, dropping it as I jump back. Hums the sack. What on earth? I whisper, creeping a few inches closer. Whatever is making that strange noise, I'm more curious than I am afraid of it. Moving carefully, I pull back the zipper of the top pocket and peer inside. A small, rectangular device hums at the bottom of the pocket. Just as I pull it out into the light, the vibrating stops. Lucius prowls closer with caution, sniffing as if to ask whether the object in my hand is edible. Is it a phone? I murmur, turning it over in my hands. The little device has an antenna sprouting from one side, but there is no number pad. Only two strange words written on the side. Motorola StarTAC. It doesn't look like any phone I've seen. I pull the compass out of my pocket and take a closer look at it. Could these strange treasures be related? Have they come from the same place? I lift my eyes to the gray horizon once more, my heart racing with a thrill of anticipation. They have come from the same place. They've come from the Otherworld. And that is the end of chapter 1. Thank you guys for listening. You are an amazing, amazing audience. I saw some questions coming in as I was reading, so I'm definitely going to go back and look at those questions. But I hope you enjoyed that little excerpt from my new book, The Otherworld. The first 2 chapters officially, prologue and chapter 1. Some of my favorite parts of the world building actually is included in what I just read, because that's kind of the part of the book where I really built Orca's world and set up like what her life is like, what her world is like, and wanted to really make it feel immersive and like you're stepping into this world that's possibly a bit different than anything else you've experienced. So thank you guys so much. All the comments coming in, you guys are amazing. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you enjoyed that. I love the vibes too. Honestly, the vibes made me write this book. No exaggeration. I mean, I love the characters, but before I even knew the characters, I knew the vibe I wanted to bring to this book, and I just fell in love with it. I when I visited the Pacific Northwest, I went to Whidbey Island back in 2014, and then again in 2016. And both times I fell in love with that area of the world, of the country. It's just so beautiful. And I knew that I wanted to write a book with those vibes. So I'm so glad you guys feel immersed in the story already. And I hope you're excited to read the rest of the book. And thank you so much for listening. I'm going to answer some questions now that came in while I was reading. And I feel like some of them are inspired by what I just read. So it'll be a good springboard for these questions. Thank you guys so much for all the wonderful comments that you posted while I was reading. Jenna says, I just wanted to say thank you for writing this story and sharing it with us. You inspire me so deeply. I can't wait until I get my own book written and share it with you. Well, I will be very much looking forward to that, Jenna. I would love to read your book. And I am so, so thrilled that you are here and that you have been enjoying my channel and my books. That means so much to me. Samantha Rose asked, what was your original inspiration for The Otherworld? How long have you been working on it from the first idea to now that it's about to be published? Oh my goodness. So the first idea, I think I had the first idea back in like, I want to say 2018 or maybe 2019. It was quite a while ago. And then I started writing the first draft in 2019, and it took me about a year to write the first draft. It was very long. I ended up taking a lot of words out of it, and refining some things a bit. But yeah, it was funny the way that the idea just came to me one day. I was really tired for some reason. I'd woken up really early in the morning at like 4 o'clock in the morning or something. So I was taking a nap in the afternoon. And as I was lying down to take a nap, I just had this random idea come to me of like, what if a girl who lives in a lighthouse on an island by herself has never talked to anyone else, has never had communication with anybody outside her island, and she finds this cell phone washed up on the beach? And that was it. That was like just this flash of inspiration. I'm like, oh, that would be cool. And then all these ideas started coming to me of the missing pilot and the brother on the other side of the cell phone. And I just couldn't sleep at that point. The nap was completely forgotten, and I'm glad because that wave of inspiration was worth riding. So it's been a long journey, but it's been a really good journey. Bailey Williams asks, what was your favorite scene to write? Oh man, that's hard to say. My favorite scene to write was probably, I don't want to give away a spoiler, but it's towards the end of the book. So if I tell you what happens in the scene, it's gonna definitely spoil it. Um, and I don't even know how to tell you the chapter titles, but I can tell you that the chapter number or the chapter name is World War III. Okay, and if you've read the book, you know what happens in that chapter. If you haven't, then you'll be surprised. But it's not actually World War III that happens, but on a personal level, yes. That's all I'm going to say. I really enjoyed writing that chapter. And it's funny because I actually originally wrote it from Adam's point of view. And then in this last draft, I went back and rewrote it from Jack's point of view because I felt like Jack was the character who is experiencing the most emotional turmoil in that scene. Okay, I'm not going to say any more before I spoil it. Megan asked, do you have any recommendations or advice for doing research into a topic you want to cover in your book, but about which you personally know very little? That's a very good question and appropriate for this book because when I set out to write this book, I knew I wanted a big focus on piloting, bush pilots, aviation, and I'm a aviation enthusiast, but very amateur one. I love learning about flying and planes, but I do not know much at all. So I knew that I wanted to make sure the information was accurate. So what I did was I tried to research as much as I could on my own. And then from there, I reached out to a few actual bush pilots for information to help me answer some questions and also to beta read excerpts from the book. So I was really blessed to be able to connect with a couple of former bush pilots. And they were so amazing, so patient with me, answered all my questions in detail about so many different aspects of piloting, aviation, and weather, and just so many little details that really made the terminology in the Otherworld shine and made it feel authentic. And they were even so good as to read excerpts from the book of specific flying scenes and tell me what sounded accurate, what maybe needed some help. and it was amazing. So I would highly recommend that process to any other writer out there who wants to write about something that you're not super familiar with. Reach out to people, reach out to enthusiasts on the topic. And a great place to do that, where I found and connected with one of the bush pilots, was actually through Quora. So I asked a few questions about bush pilot stuff on Quora, and a former bush pilot replied, answered my question, and I found out that he was actually an author too, and he has a blog. And I reached out to him, and we started talking, and it was great. It was just like a great right place, right time connection. And those are the kinds of connections that you can make very easily with people who are enthusiastic about what you're writing about. And a lot of times they're very happy to read what you have, give you feedback. So I would definitely recommend doing that. I see some fellow aviation enthusiasts in the chat. Yay! So cool. So I hope that helps answer your question. It's also really amazing just to research stuff, I find, and to learn new things while you're writing. I find that like writing about a thing while you're learning about it makes the process so much more fun. And it also makes the information stick with you on a more personal level. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Aurora Rose, for the compliment on the book cover. I do love this book cover so much. It came out amazing. Um, JC asked, I love this story so much. What about Orca reminds you the most of yourself? That's a good question. I think what reminds me the most, what about Orca reminds me the most of myself is how she's very optimistic about the world. She sees hope everywhere and she sees the good in people. She was like default gives people the benefit of the doubt and like wants to trust that people are mostly good and doesn't really immediately subscribe to this idea that her father has told her about like, people aren't kind, people aren't caring in the other world. Like she wants to believe in hope and true love and happy endings, and she's just a hopeless romantic. I can relate to that a lot. It's just like looking on the sunny side of life, I guess. I can also relate a lot to her being homeschooled and like kind of offbeat. Like just a lot of things about her upbringing are very unconventional, very hands-on learning about the world and animals and the environment, and that's how I grew up being homeschooled. So it was definitely a it was definitely something I could relate to a lot as I was writing and was super fun to write about. Olivia asks, I don't know if this will be a spoiler, but who do you like better, Jack or Adam? Oh, that's like asking me to choose between my children. Like, what's your favorite? I love them both for different reasons. But I would say that I can relate the most to Adam, so I feel like I'm predisposed to like him more because I can just relate more to his personality, whereas Jack is very different from me. But it was really fun to write his personality, and, like, writing his voice was probably one of my favorite aspects of writing this book. So it's so hard to choose. I love them both. Let's see. Yay, I see some homeschoolers in the chat. Homeschoolers for the win! Yay, homeschool club. Okay. Um, Eyeball Writes Stories asked kind of a deep, heavy question. Um, where were the challenges when writing this story? What were your challenges when writing this story? Oh man, probably the biggest challenge with writing this story was really honing in on the characters' conflicts and creating a final draft that felt like it was very focused on the individual characters and their conflicts. I know that sounds kind of broad, but the first draft of this book was a bit different. It was much longer. So I had to really go through and find like what is the heart of the story here? And can I sift through some of the extra stuff and kind of boil it down to like, what is the heart of what's going on here? Does this point towards the heart of the story? So that was a bit of a challenge because I had so much in the first draft, and it was really good, but I needed to like kind of trim it down and figure out like, okay, why does it matter? And how can I make each chapter feel really meaningful and have layers so we're not just accomplishing, something with this main plot, we're actually tying in some subplots too and weaving in some of the other aspects of Orca's background and her family history. I won't spoil anything, but there's a pretty big plot twist in the book about halfway through, and that was something that I started to develop after the first draft. So that was also interesting to play with. But every challenge is fun to me. It's like, it's never really that frustrating because it's always constructive, It's always like, how can I make this better? And that's something that really excites me about a project. And I think that's a superpower with writing. If you can develop the superpower of being really confident in yourself as a rewriter, then you don't even need to have so much confidence in the first draft, Like a lot of writers struggle with the first draft because they don't have the confidence in what they wrote being good. Um, but I feel like you don't even need to have the confidence of what you wrote in the first draft being good if you have confidence in yourself that you can rewrite anything and you can make it better. So that's something that I've been dwelling on a lot this year. And I think that's an area I can grow in. And it certainly helped me a lot, helped me to have a better perspective on my first drafts. Um, Bailey asked, just curious, what did your final word count end up being? My final word count for this book, oh man, I think the first draft was like 100 and I want to say it was 140,000. And then this sounds horrible, but I can't remember what the last draft word count is. I thought it was around like 119 or 109. There was a 9 in there somewhere. I know it's over 100,000 words, but yeah. So a lot did come out, but it was reshaped and rebuilt in a really beautiful way. Um, Cream Fan Gal 11 asked, did there ever come a point where you felt burnt out and thought about stopping, or was your passion for it stronger? Burnout is definitely real. It definitely happens to every writer. So I've experienced burnout with pretty much every project that I've worked on. With this project, I would say it was a little bit different because I wrote it very slowly. I wrote it over the course of I think a year and a half. So it wasn't like a very like quickly write and then crash and get burnt out. It was more like a slow paced writing endeavor. So it didn't really I don't remember having much burnout when I wrote the first draft of this book, but I tried to pace myself and I definitely enjoyed the writing process more, going slowly, pacing myself, enjoying every moment. But yes, the motivation to to finally get the book out there is definitely what makes the passion stronger for me. Millie Oliver asked, has the publishing and advertising been easier for you since it's your third novel? I'm so excited to read, but almost more excited because of the bonus content. Oh, that's so cool. I'm so glad you pre-ordered. So glad you got to take advantage of that bonus content because like it's done now. It's gone. I mean, you'll still have access to the bonus content on the website with the immersive reading video and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been fun to find new ways to promote this book and market it and get it out to as many readers as possible. I have started to look at book promo differently, not so much as like a chore or like, oh, I have to do this, because I'm an indie author, so I have to promote the book. It's like I've kind of taken this new approach to it just for myself of like, this can be fun. Like, if this was someone else's book that I was just really excited about, and I tell every indie author this, this is my best pro tip for book promo. look at your book like it's somebody else's book that you're really, really excited about. Like, what would you post about it? What's the energy you would bring to it? How would you be finding fun new ways to talk about it, to convince your friends to read it, to convince everybody who follows you to read it, and bringing that like excited energy to the space where you are talking about your book will make such a difference. Not only will it make a difference for your followers and your readers, but it will also make a difference for you because it will actually be fun. Like it won't be like, okay, I'm trying to, convince people to go read my book. It's like you're just having fun with your characters and your world and your book, and it's fun. It can be enjoyable. So I've been trying to find the fun with the book promo this time around. So it has been easier because of that. Because with this third novel of mine, I feel like I have kind of become more aware of ways that I can enjoy every step of the process. Kyra asks, would you ever write a book where the characters from 100 Days of Sunlight and the Otherworld meet each other? That would be pretty cool. I mean, the Otherworld does take place in 1997, so they would have to be, I guess, older when they met the characters from 100 Days of Sunlight. But I can see those two worlds interacting for sure. And I can also see possibly writing a follow-up book to the Otherworld that takes place later on. I've had a few thoughts about that and a few requests for that. Particularly those of you who are Team Jack have asked me to write a book for Jack. I've heard you and I've thought about it. um, let's see, I'm going to answer a few more questions before we have to wrap up here. The young Catholic asks, how did you capture the emotion in Jack's scenes in the first 5 chapters? Those were amazing. Oh, thank you so much. Honestly, those chapters, they were really, it was really an interesting process to write those chapters because when we first meet Jack, he is coping with the chaotic emotions of the grief of his parents who assume that Adam has died in a plane crash. And Jack's resistance to this idea because he cannot stand the thought of losing his brother. So he is dealing with grief, but it's kind of this denial stage of grief where he's just not accepting it. And that was a really interesting emotion to explore, especially with a character like Jack, who's very explosive, and he doesn't really withdraw too much and internalize emotions. He's more outwardly explosive. He'll more likely lash out and get angry before he gets sad about something. So it was kind of a challenge just to figure out like, okay, so we have this emotion and then we have, this character who behaves like this and his personality is like this, and sort of filtering the grief and the conflict through his personality, through his unique beliefs was really interesting to write about because it's always a new challenge, right? To write a new character, especially a character who's not very much like you. And that was a fun exploration. But thank you so much. I'm so glad you enjoyed those first few chapters. It was definitely a really cool writing process for me. Sophia asked, did you ever cry while writing this book? Yes, I did. I did. I get like really emotional with my characters a lot of times. I think I cried multiple times writing Jack's point of view. Like particularly the scene where he right before he realizes Adam's alive, where he's like waking up in the morning and I think the chapter is called Back from the Grave. So it's like when Adam calls him and he realizes that Adam's alive. But when before Adam calls him, he's like kind of going through this thought process of like what a life would look like without Adam. And I remember just like weeping writing that chapter because I was just like really internalizing the grief of my characters and just, wow, it was powerful. I always think that writing, if your writing can make you cry, like while you're writing it, then you're doing something right because it's gonna be emotional for somebody else if you can feel it. someone else is going to feel it. Let's see. Moonlight asks, what can you say to motivate writers to continue what they're doing and not give up so easily? Oh, man, just keep doing it for the love of doing it. And I know that sounds so simple, but at the end of the day, that is what has to propel you is the passion and the love of the practice itself. If you find yourself returning to writing over and over again because you love it, because you have all these ideas and emotions bottled up inside you and you are not big enough to contain them, then you're a real writer. You're a true writer. And so you will always be pulled towards that force of gravity that is writing. Um, and as far as the discouragement goes, the self critic, the voice in your head that says, oh, maybe this isn't good enough, all that is really just comparison and kind of thinking, what if somebody doesn't like it? What if somebody rejects it? What if I'm criticized? What if I'm you know, put down or something for what I wrote? Or what if somebody doesn't think it's good enough? And the thing is, nothing, no art ever is above criticism, which is really profound when you think about it. Like the best art of all time, the greatest artists of all time have been very highly criticized throughout all of history. So, are you going to ever be able to write something that is above criticism? No. Does that mean you shouldn't do it? Absolutely not. Like, that's the point, you know? The point is that you have to create from your heart. You have to create from that place in you that's burning with passion to make something. And once you make it and you're proud of it and you're happy with it, it doesn't matter if anybody criticizes it. It doesn't matter if somebody thinks it's not good enough because it came from your heart. And there's going to be a lot of people, many, many people, way more than the critics, who also can feel it in their heart and they resonate with it and they love it. So do it for them and enjoy it, find the fun, find the enjoyment. If that means shutting off all social media and all other voices of criticism, if that means not sharing your work with anybody and not getting feedback and just writing for the love of it for a while until you build up that inner resilience and confidence on your art and your talent, then do that. Do what's best for you. But never give up because anyone can do this. Anyone can, if they have the courage of their convictions and the perseverance and the love. I would say that's like the three things you need is perseverance, love of your art, and courage to stand on what you've created and say, I'm proud of it, regardless of who criticizes it. Okay, guys, there are so many amazing questions coming in, but I can only answer so many with the short time we have here. So I thank you so much for the questions you've asked, and I hope that my answers and conversation has inspired some good thought and maybe revealed a little bit more about my new book, The Otherworld, that I have not talked about anywhere else. So I'm super glad that we were able to come together for this special little pre-launch party. And like I said before, we're going to have a bigger launch party tomorrow on my channel at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope you can make it to that one. If not, there will be a replay available, but I will be signing hardcovers at the launch party. These beautiful hardcovers. I have 50 copies. I'm going to sign them all live and I'm going to answer more questions. So if I didn't get to your question today, you can be on that live stream tomorrow and ask me more questions then, and I will try to get to as many as possible. It's going to be super fun. There will be cake and there will be celebrating and I will be sharing more about this book and my publishing process and my writing process. And also, I will be giving away one signed hardcover to somebody on the live stream. So I decided to do this last minute because I thought it'd be really fun because the 50 copies sold out super, super fast. And I know some of you weren't able to get there in time. So if you weren't able to get a signed hardcover, I'm going to be randomly choosing someone from the chat on the live tomorrow to win a signed hardcover. So that's going to be fun too. So I hope to see you there tomorrow. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming to this special reading of The Otherworld. Thanks for listening to me read the first 2 chapters of this book. And thank you again so, so much for pre-ordering my new book. I so appreciate it and I so value you. Thank you so much for supporting my author journey and for being here for the release of this new book. I hope to see you tomorrow. And until then, as always, rock on. Shh.